Hello and welcome to It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. This is a podcast for business leaders and business owners just like you. We're going to be sharing top tips on how to develop yourself personally and professionally. I'm going to be sharing updated podcasts on a regular basis, so please do make sure you subscribe, and I really hope you enjoy today's podcast. This episode is what business leaders can learn from education and why I became a school governor. So I recently, in the last year or so, became a school governor at a primary school locally to me. Absolutely fantastic primary school, one that my children went to. And very interesting for me as a proposition when I got approached to ask to see if I'd consider becoming a governor, because I'm a busy person, right? Lots and lots of things to do. And it's very, very important, as I was saying in the recent episode that I've done with Ian, absolutely vital to value my time. At the same time, I think it's always important one of the other values for me is around making sure that I give my expertise back and sort of can support causes that are bigger than myself, right? So it aligned with that. And then it also aligned with a value around my growth as well, and sort of my personal growth, my understanding. Because interestingly, historically, I've only ever worked in profit-making businesses. I've never worked in the education sector. And I thought it was really interesting as a student of leadership, as someone who looks to understand organizational psychology, organizational performance, and leadership as well. I find it fascinating to understand better how those things work. So it was a win-win for me in that I was able to do something that contributed, and I thought that other organizations will always benefit from entrepreneurial skills, leadership skills, those kinds of things, and experience that I bring to the table, but also that I can benefit from the learning. So having been in the role sort of 18 months now, I think it's quite interesting to see the differences between that education sector and business, and also what are the lessons we can learn. Because one of the things I often speak to people that I coach about is about looking at other industries. What are other industries doing that we could take the learnings from? One of the things that people get bogged down is they often just look at their competitors. What is it my competitors are doing? Well, often you're looking at the wrong things. How do you know that competitor's profitable? How do you know that it's not a race to the bottom? Often we end up getting caught up on price when we look at competitors. And interestingly, if we look at different industries, if we look at different sectors, we can see what they're doing. That's absolutely fascinating. And there's a few lessons I wanted to share from education in particular that I've looked at and thought was quite useful. So the school system is an absolute pressure cooker from a leadership perspective. You quickly realize it's not that different from running a business. There's no hiding, no sort of polished boardroom language. It's got its own set of language. It's a completely different language, actually, when you look at all of the different acronyms and things that you have to consider from a school perspective. But it really has given me a perspective, and a few of the things I've learned. So one of the things is clarity beats complexity. One of the things that I know I have a tendency to do with my businesses is that I overcomplicate them. I look at the marketing and I want to do this and I want to do that, and I have all these ideas. And the reality is that the clarity is absolutely vital. And particularly when you look at a primary school, we need to explain stuff in a way that a primary school child will understand. So clarity is really, really important. The vision needs to be really, really clear, and that needs to be understood not only by teachers, but also by the students themselves. If not, you're going to end up with drift from a staff perspective. The students won't engage, and then you get the behavioural slip. So you need to be really clear on what the vision is and what the behavioural expectations are. There's no confusion. Great schools repeat a simple message relentlessly. What we stand for, what good looks like, what matters most. Simple, right? Isn't that simple? But as a business, are we doing that? Are we relentless in repeating those simple messages that we expect from a performance? what we stand for, what good looks like, what matters most. I think we do tend to overcomplicate stuff, strategy decks, fancy wording, endless initiatives. If people don't understand something, they can't deliver it. And I think that's one of the takeaways that I've had from a school perspective. So, you know, let's keep that messaging really, really simple and relentless. What we stand for, what good looks like, and what matters most. Hi, my name's Pete, and I want to thank you for tuning into today's podcast. I'm a coach, speaker, and author. And if you want to take your personal development that bit further, did you know that I offer a mastermind program as well as one-to-one coaching? If you're interested, please do reach out on peterushmer.com. The next learning was around the culture. So a culture is essentially the behavior under pressure. And from an education perspective, it's tested constantly. Classrooms are tough, safeguarding's a challenge, teachers are getting stressed. It's not easy. And that's where a set of values and principles either show up or disappear. So one of the things I've observed in a really strong school is that essentially they don't talk about culture. A lot of the time in business, we get caught talking about culture rather than actually living it. And actually, what I've seen that's really positive is it's kept really simple, but the culture has to be alive because it is so tough. So I think one of the things that we need to take away is what's actually happening when the pressure hits. Because I actually think in a lot of businesses and a lot of the businesses I support, when the pressure hits, everything goes to shit. And actually, I think the simpler the messaging is, the simpler the expectations, the more likely the culture is to catch. So there we go. For me, culture is around how behavior happens under pressure, and there's no better way of looking at that than seeing it live in a classroom environment. Another thing I learned from the education sector is that we focus a lot of the time in business on lag measures, profitability, KPIs. They're delayed data that are outputs of the work that we've done. So in a business, you can hide poor performance for months. It could be very difficult to see, but in a reality, in a school, you can actually see it immediately. It's there in minutes. So it's really interesting to see the education sector that the feedback is immediate. It's really, really unforgiving in that sense. If you're delivering a crap lesson, it's not going to land. Students are going to disengage. Behavior is going to be a problem, right? If leadership's unclear, then you're going to see frustration immediately. If systems are weak, then behavior is going to deteriorate. So you've got this real-time performance environment. And I think if I think about how I can run my businesses with that level of visibility, I'm going to be able to fix issues faster. I'm going to be able to communicate more clearly and be more intentional about my leadership. So I think that's really, really important, is around trying to adjust the business so that the KPIs are super, super current. And then the next one is around people development. So obviously in a business, we focus on developing people, but we have much more flexibility around pay and improvement of pay and profitability and how that can fuel bonuses and things like that. A lot of that, we don't really have that luxury, or you wouldn't have that luxury from a school perspective. So developing people is the strategy. That is the strategy. Looking after people, supporting them. Anything that comes down to from an improvement perspective is around improving the teaching, improving the leadership, better support for the people. In business, we tend to just go, well, we'll get to that when it calms down. I've been too busy. I've been firefighting, whatever it may be. We have to just continue regardless of that. And then I think that the fifth thing I've sort of seen is that there's a lot of, from a leadership perspective, there's a lot more visibility. So that there's a lot more expectation. I sort of look at the head teacher and I see walking the corridors, I see running assemblies, I see dealing with issues on a current basis. So there's no hiding in an office. The visibility sort of creates trust, and I think that is a real key learning as well for businesses, that it's really, really important. I see a lot of businesses where the leaders are invisible. They're not really there. They're not being seen. So I think it's absolutely vital that we focus on that as well. So I thought it was quite interesting. Becoming a governor, it was about giving back. It was about understanding education better. But for me, I've had loads of learnings from it as well. It's really helped sharpen the way I see things. It's easy for us to sit in like an echo chamber of our industry. Joe Blogs around the corner's doing that. ABC company are doing this. You kind of generate the same conversation, same challenges, same thinking. You go on LinkedIn, you see people who are like you in the same industry as yours, doing the same stuff. So it's a bit of an echo chamber. I think this has helped me sort of zoom out and sort of really focus on how other people are doing things and what that can mean. So, there's not really any spin here, just a bit of reality. So I think the takeaway for you is not only the learnings that I've sort of shared, but also what could you do to, one, give back from a virtuous perspective? What can you do to give back and share your expertise where it's valued elsewhere? But also, how could that be a win-win for you? How can you go and sharpen your leadership by looking over the fence in another industry, in a completely other sector? Might be really, really useful for you, and it might be really, really useful for them as well. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you coming and listening to today's podcast, and I look forward to seeing you on a future episode. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on today's It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. We really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time to listen, and I really hope that you'll subscribe to ensure that you receive future episodes too. If you want to find out any more, please do search It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast, and you'll find it on your favourite podcast app. Thank you.